Some startups go up, others go down. Welcome to GeekWire's Elevator Pitch, presented by West River Group, where 3 entrepreneurs pitch their businesses in the 32 seconds it takes to get to the top of Seattle's historic Smith Tower. We'll hear from 3 startup founders as they pitch their emerging businesses to our panel of leading investors and entrepreneurs. Let's meet our judges. Anthony Bontrager, a longtime entrepreneur, media executive, and venture investor who enjoys working with startups as managing director of West River Group and cycling throughout the Pacific Northwest. Maria Colacurcio, CEO of Syndio, mom of 7, and fitness enthusiast who is committed to embedding workplace equity into the fabric of companies around the world. Kirby Winfield of venture capital firm Ascend. He's a Seattle entrepreneur with 2 IPOs and 2 exits under his belt and counts more than 80 startup investments to his name. The clock is ticking. Find out which entrepreneur has what it takes to make it to the top.
Hello, my name is Henny Damian. I'm co-founder and CEO of Joola.
Welcome to Smith Tower. Going up.
Joola is a rotating group savings platform where friends and family can connect, borrow, and save money together. We are inspired by global traditions that come together to accomplish shared financial goals. Joola combines the power of community with savings to bring you easy access to credit and rewards for saving money. Whatever your financial goals are, you can tap into a community and share your journey together. Finances can be tough and isolating, but with Joola, you are never alone.
I love the concept. So tell us a little bit more about how you guys are able to offer what's essentially a lending solution. I mean, is there a regulatory issue that you have to deal with or anything like that in order to be able to make your product available?
Yeah, great question. The concept has been around for centuries, and it's basically a microfinance concept. So you join groups with people you know and trust, like for your friends and family. So it's really a micro lending, so we don't really have any regulatory obstacle because we are only facilitating the transactions from peer to peer and not necessarily holding the money at all.
So how do you make money?
We generate revenues by charging the first 3 positions. So the first 3 positions pays 7%, 6%, and 5% respectively. And we also give rewards to the last person who received their payout for 1%.
And what's the incentive for folks to do it this way? What's the particular incentive over a regular savings plan or just doing this through their bank? Or
Yeah, so this idea has been, like I said, it has been around for centuries. Like in India, it's known as chit. In Latin America, it's known as tandas or juntas. In Africa, it's known as susu. And in Indonesia, where I'm from, it's known as arisan or jula-jula. The whole idea behind this is giving people power to get access to credit without having to go to the banks when your credit score is really low or it's limiting. And it's just in the sterile world of finances. Everything is about money and numbers. So this idea really brings in the idea of people and the money and not just the money itself.
So I love that it taps into traditions that are hyper local, right? And I saw on the website you kind of call out the many different ways that this is described across the world. Are there community leaders who facilitate this at the hyperlocal level, or talk more about how you can tap into that existing behavior?
Yeah, our target market primarily are immigrant communities who are already familiar with this concept, and they're doing it traditionally offline. So I joined a few groups in the past where I had to remember to go to the bank, take out the cash, and actually drive down to that person's house. And that person who is the group creator or the group admin, that person dispersed the money back to whoever is taking the payout at that time. So there is a lot of logistical issues over there. So what Joola does is we're only translating that whole social aspect of it into automated transactions. But you can still socialize and everything and organize chat, invite other people to your group. Everything is still under the app.
So how do you go about building trust in these communities to get them to trust your solution as an app as a place where they want to do this type of thing with their friends and family and feel trusted, like they're not going to be the recipient of some sort of bad faith effort?
Yeah, we are approaching traditional, we have a program what we call a super user program, and we recruit those who are doing it traditionally and get those person to join the groups, and then we also give a little bit of rewards, kind of like incentives to find other people who they've been dealing with before and make it easy for them logistically.
What's the projected revenue per user? At the end of the day, whether you're connecting with communities one-to-one or one-to-many, or you're doing content marketing, or you're flying around the world meeting people, or you're buying ads on Google, you got to spend money to acquire customers. So what I'm trying to ask is, how much money do you make per customer, you as Joola, so that we can try to back into what you can afford to spend to acquire a customer. Does that make sense?
Yes. So it really depends on the amount of groups payouts per member. So we've had groups ranging from $60 all the way to $6,000. So it really a big range, but on average, we make around, I would say, $5, between $5 to $15 per month per user.
Wow. Okay.
At least that's the projected.
Sure. So so it's called $100 a year per user.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. And that's all net revenue to you.
Yes.
Okay.
So who actually holds the funds when people deposit their money or make their payments into this pool? So is there one person of the group that's designated as kind of, they've got the bank account? Because you aren't the custodian of the money, like you said earlier, right?
Yeah. So that's why because we're not touching the money at all, we're facilitating it from peer to peer. So when the money, if I'm the first one to get the payout, then you all will send directly to me instead of going through a middleman.
Okay.
How many groups do you have so far?
We have, last year, we just launched March of 2021, beta launch, and we launched in Spanish and English. We launched, we completed close to 20 groups last year, and we processed more than $100,000 in group transactions.
Thank you so much for coming to pitch to us today. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really, really wanted her to lean into the question about go-to-market and the communities. This thing absolutely lends itself to a really disciplined approach to reaching out to community leaders, tapping into these existing practices and markets and people where this is already happening. And she didn't seem to have really any good grasp of the specifics of how to do that.
It's the scale. I love the intent and the mission, trying to figure out how to deliver lending solutions to people from underrepresented backgrounds and doing it in a way that fits with their culture and how they've been thinking about this. But the scale worries me because, again, you've got to figure out how to build that currency of trust to move people from something they're doing amongst themselves in very trusted communities to an app. Yeah. And that's the part that I'm curious how she's going to approach that.
It's almost like a nice to have, not necessarily a pain point for these communities because they've been doing this for, hundreds of years, it sounds like, from her. So, what is going to make people want to move onto this platform as opposed to kind of what they're currently doing?
Devin Miller, CEO and co-founder of SecureSave.
Welcome to Smith Tower, heading to the observatory level.
Americans are more stressed than ever over their finances and prioritizing emergency savings over any other financial priority. So that's why we set out to reimagine emergency savings with SecureSave. With SecureSave, you get an emergency savings account that's easy, automatic, with better incentives. We do this by partnering with employers to sponsor these programs, kind of like an HSA or 401k. And like an HSA, emergency savings are set to be a multi-billion-dollar category, and we're set to be the category leader. So check it out at securesave.com.
Good morning. How y'all doing? I'm Devin Miller.
All right, I gotta ask, doesn't Affleck do this?
No.
Tell me why not.
I don't know why Aflac doesn't do it. They offer, there's a lot of different types of ways that give a safety net to people. So Aflac is the if you get hurt and you can't work type of program. So there are things that are offered through employers, but ours is very different. It's much more of a kind of something you could do on your own, but it's totally automated. So there's nothing to prevent an employee from walking into HR and saying, hey, I want to take a little bit of piece of my paycheck and put it over into this savings account. But quite literally, like almost no one does that in the grand scheme of things. And so we just automate this process, work with employers through their payroll, set it all up, move money from their paycheck. The employer matches, so that's where the incentive comes from. And a little bit of money goes a long way. And so it's much more of a super easy to understand concept that's totally automated with just a pretty moderate but great incentive.
Who do you sell to?
Good question. We don't sell to high growth tech startups right now. But really, if you think about the biggest issue right now for a lot of HR is the great resignation and being able to recruit and retain. But specifically, that's in the kind of mid-level to lower level roles. And so if you drive by in Seattle area, you'll see all these $15 an hour or $29 an hour jobs being posted. They can't fill them fast enough or high enough. And so we're really targeting places like medical, hospitality, services, manufacturing, places like that. And those are roles that unfortunately also align with the least prepared and least kind of financially savvy members of America.
So you made a really interesting point. I mean, employees can basically have emergency savings today. Like you said, they can go to HR, please put $100 into this special account over here or whatever. So with Secure, you talk about the automation piece, but there's a couple of things that for me, I want to get a little more clarity on the share of wallet that you're asking of the employers, because not only are they doing the employee match, but I would imagine there's a PEPM cost or some other kind of revenue or fee component to this, and that's how you guys make money, right?
There is. And so again, to use the HSA analogy, I mean, we really have been modeling our whole company in the category off of health savings accounts. We think there's a ton of correlation to how that industry started 20 years ago. The business model is very similar. The way it's sold, why employers buy it, there's a ton of similarities. And so to your question, we charge a per employee per month that participates. It's about $1 to $5 depending on the employer and details like that. We average kind of right in the middle of that. We can also make money on the funds that are deposited into that account over time, which is similar to HSAs. And then there is the ability long-term to have some cross-sale, upsell opportunities, which we've identified, and that'll be kind of the third stage of our revenue. This is exactly how HSAs work. They make bulk of the revenue off the subscription the employer pays, a little bit, but very high margin off the deposits, and then a little bit, but also very high margin off of kind of ancillary. All of these are very key high margin revenue sources. And on literally just the PEPM, we can survive as a business. But as we layer those on, it creates super sticky, very high margin, really good growth business.
So you have a SaaS component plus a transactional element that's available.
Correct.
Okay.
And so if you look at the HSA space, the number one company is Health Equity. They're the market leader. They've been around about 20 years and they have about 15% market share. I think it's about a $700 million a year revenue business with a 25% bottom line. The exact same business model. They have about, I think, 10 million users on their platform.
So with the employee engagement and the explosion of the wellness space right now, how do you position against folks like Guild Education who are offering college classes and upskilling and reskilling, or some of the wellness packages that are really expensive that total rewards leaders are feeling pressure to implement right now? How do you position against those?
Great question. It's pretty easy because a few things. Ours is so simple to understand. It's literally all we do, and we've gone all in on the topic of emergency savings. So it's a very simple concept, very straightforward. I will also throw out one of our co-founders is Susie Orman, personal finance expert, and no one has talked to more people or is more known in the US right now on finance matters than Susie. So she's a fantastic way for us to cut through the noise and really get that very simple message out. But then it gets down to the kind of brass tacks of the product. Super high adoption, very high engagement, fairly low investment cost, and something that people really, really resonate with. Those are the things that when we actually get in front of HR and total rewards leaders, they're saying, look, I can't find anything nearly as good from a total package as what I can get from emergency savings.
So what's the average contract value?
It really depends. I mean, right now in our funnel of the deals that we're looking at, that we're working, which is well over 100 companies that are live in our funnel right now, the average value is over 100,000, and that's an annual contract value. but these are very sticky. You're not going to take an emergency savings account from an employee. We have 100% retention with our employers, though it's early, all signs point to, as we expected, very sticky, very long-lasting value, and it's a very, very profitable business. And once you get that flywheel going, it's almost unstoppable.
All right, this is awesome. Really appreciate your time today pitching here at GeekWire's Elevator Pitch.
Yep, thanks for the time.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Devin.
Bye-bye.
So I thought the Aflac analog that you laid out there was actually really interesting because it points to, there's incumbents in this space that could probably very easily mimic this business model. So I'm kind of curious to hear from both of you guys, do you see that as a risk here, or is there really a there for a company like Secure?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know enough about the space. I just watched a lot of TV and I like Gilbert Gottfried, so I was like, immediately thought of Aflac when I thought of emergency savings. But he kind of talks about it in his pitch. The HSAs are the big incumbents. Nothing stopping them from coming down into this space. So the question is, can he move fast enough? Is he differentiated enough? Do employers, trust the HSAs? Do they care if someone else provides the service? Yeah, good questions.
It's a decent ACV, and then if you think about what the company has to outlay in terms of the matching, I think that's where I go. The one thing I was impressed with is his channel strategy. I think the channel strategy with Willis Towers Watson and Aon and really creating a category around this is very smart.
Yep.
Shahar Plinner, the CEO and co-founder of Formations.
Welcome to Smith Tower. Next stop, 35.
Self-employed are the largest segment of the US workforce, yet they are underserved, overlooked, and 90% of them are overpaying their taxes. It's the reason we started Formations, to give the self-employed access, guidance, and help them make the most of a financial system that geared towards corporations. Formations help independent business owners maximize their financial potential and increase their take-home money. By following the Formations playbook and making smart financial decisions, our customers have saved over $11,000 in average in 2021. What would you do with an extra $10,000?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there.
Maria, you know what you would do, right? Don't you have some experience in the space we were talking about before?
So my husband owns a gym, small business in Seattle on First Avenue. And this is a huge pain point because if you think about gym owners, they're passionate about a certain aspect of what they do, but not the paperwork. So tell me, what about this is software and what about it is actually consulting behind the scenes or connecting folks to consulting or tax help or bookkeeping?
So I'm a domain expertise in the tax and accounting field for over 17 years. So we started back in 2019 as a solution market fit. It was just a service. We wanted to test that we can actually sell our solution into real customers before we start building something that we think they want. And we used that audience, these 150 customers that came during 2020 as the design partners. Since then, about 60% of the process is automated, and the rest is done by human.
So does your system tie into, the traditional, gig worker or small business owner workflows like, Quicken or TriNet for their benefits or all of those things? Is that how you guys take that information and provide insights around and then your suggestions on that, or does yours replace those point solutions?
We'll replace those. So we develop a playbook with our solutions. Some is integrations and software that we're building, and some is basically solution out there. So we decided basically not to write a code for accounting system. So we partner with Xero, which is the largest competitor of QuickBooks Online. So Xero basically we have an access to Xero engineering team to make sure that our solution I can open up a little bit more the Xero capabilities. Same for payroll. One of the recommendations that we see self-employed that are making $80,000 and more is, for instance, the move from a sole prop or single member LLC into an S corp. S corp require for the business owner kind of we bifurcate, the business from the personal, and now the personal become an employee of the business. Now there is a need for payroll services. So we're not writing any payroll code. We are integrating with Gusto embedded services. So we picked kind of the best of on-the-shelf solution at the moment that self-employed can use, and we believe that this is the best fit for them.
So I want to dig on that a little bit. I ran a startup once that provided a marketplace for property managers to rent their homes to vacationers. And when we went out to acquire that supply, our assumption was, hey, they're going to want to make 10% more money. We had a way to get them 10% more of their money. We thought that they were motivated by that. And after a year and a half of flying around the country and meeting with property managers, what we found is what they really cared about was hitting the golf course at 3 o'clock. They weren't optimizing their business. They just wanted the problem to go away. So my question is, how much of this problem is a real problem versus, in other words, let me double back. The question is, do the self-employed business owners or gig workers that you're targeting, do they want to optimize to the nth degree their tax status, or do they just want the problem to go away and you manage the problem? And if it's the latter, how labor intensive is that? And are you really making money on the former, but they're only doing the latter?
So they want both. So I agree with you that the tax is a good hook, tax savings. I don't know anybody that will walk away from an extra $10,000, $15,000. Now you're talking about self-employed. This is a segment that their financial profile is pretty simple. They're not complicated in their investment and their retirement. Simple people, $250,000 real estate agent. So for them to save $10,000, $15,000, it's another sale of property without moving from the chair, just by moving into a different entity structure. So the cost to move is not so high. But then they stay because of the peace of mind, because we take from them all of those tasks that the machine can do today. Pulling the data, data collection through API integration today can happen almost automatically, no problem. Cleaning the data, putting some machine learning or some rules that basically can allocate the different, expenses into buckets, amazing. And then the insight is what they're looking for. They're actually asking you to give them visibility. When they use the traditional market, the traditional CPA, they basically acting very late to the game. They're coming to the CPA usually the following year on some past activities, which means they already lost a year of things that they can do. So while we focus at the moment on tax and accounting to take it from them and provide them visibility and some recommendation, we also recommend them to do stuff. We recommend them to go to be an S corporation, to separate their banking from their personal, to reduce the risks for an audit, to put some money into a retirement. Formations is the first entity that actually interacts today on a strategic level with a financial institute to provide 401k at scale to self-employed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the elevator pitch today. It was a really insightful presentation. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Shahar.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love your shoes.
Back at you, man.
So I understand the initial allure in terms of moving from an LLC to an S corp, but what I was trying to get at is what keeps a small business owner engaged to the tune of $350 a month, post that big initial value that they get out of it.
But wouldn't it be that single pane of glass that he kind of hit on? It's like now there's essentially one screen that you're going to that has your corporate information and all of your financial, your tax information, so you're not having to bounce between one or the other. And that to me was the answer to the question I think that you asked, Kirby, is is this just something that makes the problem go away? And I think part of the problem actually is just having to go to those individual point solutions.
Right. But then that should have been the answer. Like instead there was all of a sudden this reveal at the end where we're a financial literacy platform. I say, well, no, you're a business in a box tool for self-employed
exactly
workers.
Right.
That's not the same thing, and it's okay, which is okay.
Yeah.
But that threw me for a loop a little bit.
So I agree. This is not a financial literacy play. This is a business in a box.
I always have to fight against my instinct to want everyone to just build things to help startups do better.
That's not a bad endeavor, though.
Right.
Welcome back, everybody. Great presentations, so thank you very much for all of that. We got some feedback for all of you, and so we'll start with Maria.
Great, thank you. Thanks first to all of you for coming today and for putting your heart and soul into your pitch. It was really fun to listen to each and every one of you. So I'm giving feedback to you today, Devin from SecureSave. So the one concern we all had was really from a competitive perspective, and what's to stop the top line providers from starting to descend into your market. Once they see what you're doing, particularly if you do it really well and you create a category for this, what's to stop the competition from coming in and going after it? A couple of things we liked. I think the influencer support that you have from Susie is a huge plus and benefit. I would say the last thing that made us pretty bullish on your model was your adoption rate. So the fact that you've got this high stickiness factor, once an employer puts this in, it's used, and that's differentiated from some of the other wellness benefits that we've seen. A lot of times there's a big promise, but in the end, once they roll them out, folks don't use them.
Great, thank you for all the feedback. It's fun to be a participant.
You were all amazing today, so thank you so much for sharing your stories and your pitches. Shahar, some feedback for you and Formations. First of all, I think we all agreed you had maybe the best shot at really creating a category. So we were very excited about the go-to-market with self-employed folks, and agree that that's a definite, it's a painkiller, not a vitamin, in terms of the problem you're solving. Thought that was terrific. A couple of areas that gave us pause. One was the sort of concept that we know that it was started as a professional services type business, and had some questions around, there still seemed to be a pretty heavy service component. How much of this was sprinkling software on a pro services business versus being a true DNA software business. And I was surprised to hear the sort of answer at the end around the financial literacy piece of the value proposition, because the value proposition was so tightly built around the financial software piece. And so, those were pieces where we probably would have liked to dig in more, but super appreciated the story and think you're really onto something.
Thank you so much for your feedback. Really appreciate you. Thanks.
Henny, really enjoyed your presentation. We all loved, what you're doing and what you're bringing to market. We think this is just, a great concept, socially and financially. The question we had, though, and where we kind of got hung up as a group, is really the go-to-market strategy. You talked about, going after the heavy users or the influencers and to kind of grow from there. The question really came down to, how do you do that at scale? That's an area that we think collectively is something that you might want to get a little more crisp on. But again, we thought the presentation was great, and again, the mission and the vision of what you're doing was really, really inspiring. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
So now it's time to announce the winner
It is.
of the 2022 GeekWire Elevator Pitch FinTech category. And the winner is Devin at SecureSave. So congratulations.
Congratulations, Devin.
Well done. And we're excited for all of you. Yeah, let's bring it on for the high five.
In our next episode, 3 new entrepreneurs will hop on board the Smith Tower elevator, competing for startup glory. Check out geekwire.com/elevator pitch for new episodes.